Hi, this is Professor Philip Seagraves, and this is going to be a short introduction to some of the finance functions in Excel. These are things that are not specific to any particular industry, but they'd be ones that you would use for nearly any finance-related question that involve payments, interest, present value, and so forth. We're just going to cover some basics here, and these are concepts that might apply to just about any finance class you might take at a college level. All right, the first thing that we'll just talk about, and we'll kind of use an example here, and it'll be payments. And then we'll move to calculating interest, principal for specific payments or periods of payments, and then we'll quickly look at present value calculation and just a very basic internal rate of return calculation. So let's look at the items that we would need to have available to us to calculate a payment. The first thing that we'll need obviously will be the present value or the amount of the loan or investment. So let's go ahead and put PV for the present value, and we'll use $100,000. That'd be $100,000 in our case. And let's use an interest rate, and we'll use 10% as our interest rate. And let's pick a number of years. We'll use 10 years. Whoops. We'll use years, and that'll be 10. And then how many payments per year? We'll just put payments per year, and we'll put 12. And we need to fix that so it's not a percent. And that's going to be a 10, not a 10%. And right now that's set up as a percentage, and we want to undo that and just make that a regular figure there, and we can get rid of those decimals. And ultimately we want to find out how many payments total we have, and that's going to be a function that we'll use called n. We'll just call that n. And in Excel we'll just hit the equals key to begin this, and we'll just point using our mouse to the number of years, and we'll multiply that by the payments per year, and that'll tell us how many total payments we have, 120. And in Excel, to get our payment, we're just going to use the payment function, which would be very similar to how it's done on any financial calculator, one of the most basic functions in Excel. And by the way, information about this function and any of these in Excel can be found in about 2 seconds using a quick Google search for Excel payment function or something like calculating payments in Excel. So I would encourage everybody to be resourceful and use resources like that, and check with your friends and so forth to find out some of these basics on Excel. So let's put in payment, PMT, and you'll see right there in the help as it pops up, it asks you for the rate. Keep in mind that this rate is an annual rate, so when we calculate the rate we need to have it per per period, which will be per month. So we're going to take our rate and we're going to use a slash to divide that by 12, and we'll just point to that 12. The number of periods is that 120, but we could either point to the 120 or we could just say the 10 years times the 12, and then that present value, which was the $100,000. And when I either click the checkbox here or press enter on my keyboard, it's going to give me the result, which is going to be a negative number, and it's going to be the monthly payment for this $100,000 loan or $100,000 present value, and that's $1,321.51 per month. Sometimes you're asked to determine what would the annual payment be, or the annual debt service. You still need to use the interest rate divided by 12 and the number of periods per year, the total. You can't just use 10%, and you can't just use 10 years. If you want to get an annual payment, you just have to multiply the monthly payment times 12. So the annual payment is just going to be the monthly payment times 12. And this is sometimes called annual debt service. This is the amount that you would have to pay the bank every year, and that includes interest and principal. And another kind of obvious question for many people would be, well, what percentage of the loan do I need to pay off each year? And this will be called an annual loan constant. And to get that, we could just simply do it a couple ways. We could just divide our annual payment times our original payment amount. And if I want to, what I'd probably want to do in this case is turn that into a percentage. And so our annual loan constant is going to be 16%. And if I want that to show up just a little bit more traditionally, I might make that a negative amount, because since payments are always negative cash flows or outgoing cash flows, these payments, that annual loan constant is going to show the same way. If I want to show some more of the decimals, I might right click on that in Excel and click a couple of times and it'll move that decimal place over. So that's my annual loan constant. And I simply just took my annual payment and divided it by my present value. If I wanted to get an annual loan constant for a 10% loan over 10 years without having this present value and calculating the payments, I would just do it for $1. And I'll just put, I'll copy this down here by grabbing the corner there and pulling it down. And we'll just do it that simple way with $1. And we'll do the same thing, equals payment, and this time we're going to use that same rate, the 10% divided by the 12. The number of periods is 10 years times the 12. I could either point to the 12 or I could just put a 12 in there, either way. And now we're going to use $1. Well, so that this shows up positive, I'm going to go ahead and make it minus $1, and I'm just going to press enter. Now, if you recall, that's just for 1 month. So I'm going to take that entire thing and multiply it by 12. And you're quickly going to notice that it's the same thing. So I've just done it a different way. And if I, again, increase those decimal places a couple of points, it's the exact same number. And notice here, I just used the payment for $1. And if I had let's suppose I had a loan for $375,000, $375, and I wanted to calculate what my annual debt service for that particular $375,000 loan, if I've got that 10-year loan with 10% interest. Then the great thing here is I can just multiply the 375 times that amount, and now I know that my annual payments are going to total to $59,467, just under $60,000. So that's how we would use that annual loan constant. Now, if you want to figure out the interest or principal that were paid in a whole year, a couple different ways to do that. One thing we could do would be to create an amortization schedule for this particular loan. We could start off with a balance of $100,000. And then we could calculate the interest payment for that first month. I'm going to add another column in here, and we'll just say that this is the first month, second month, third month, fourth month. And we could calculate the interest, principal, and the total payment. And the interest is just going to be that monthly interest rate times the current balance. And we remember, instead of pointing to it, I'll just do the math right here. That interest rate was 0.1, which was 10% divided by 12. This is our monthly interest rate. And if we just multiply that, I got to put some parentheses around it. Multiply that times our balance, we know that our interest in the first month is going to be $833. Well, our payment is going to be, using that payment function in Excel, our 10%, 0.1 divided by 12. Our number of periods, if you remember, was 120 because it was a 10-year loan, monthly payments. And our present value, I'll point to that 100 over here. Our total payment is going to be the 1321, if you remember from back here, the 1321. So the principal that we pay off on that particular loan is just going to be the difference between the two. So if we just do the quick math here, we have the payment and the interest. So the principal payment was $488. And I had a positive number here and a negative here. That's why I did the math that way. But if I were to go ahead and fix this here to make it show a negative cash flow also, then I would need to do the same thing here. I would need to take my payment and take away that interest instead of adding it. So let's change that to a negative. There we go. So now I have a balance and I have interest, principal, and payment. And to do an amortization schedule, my balance for the next month would simply be this balance, and I'm going to decrease the principal by the amount of this last principal payment. So now my balance has gone down to $99,000. And if you see here, if I just drag that formula down, now my interest payment for the next month goes down a little bit. And if I take my principal, if I take my payment, the payment always stays the same. And if I just change that to $100,000, that way it'll keep my payment staying the same every time when I drag it down. Now I can take that principal, and as I pull it down, it's going to automatically change its pointers and point to the correct cell. And now you can see as I just drag these formulas down in Excel, it is creating an amortization schedule. My interest payment is going down every month, my principal payment is going up every month, and my balance is going down every month. So if I were to take these cells here and grab the corner there and just pull this down, eventually I'm going to get, after 120 payments, I have a zero balance on the loan, because after 120 it's paid off, just as we had predicted earlier. So obviously if I want to get the interest or principal paid for the first year, I could just go back up here and just use one of the basic Excel functions like sum, and I could just take the interest for these first 12 payments, and there we have my interest for the first year. And if I want to do the same thing for the principal, I just copy that over, and it's going to give me my principal payments for the first year. Alright, so that's one way to do it. A quick, easy way in Excel is to use the cumulative interest and cumulative principal functions, and we'll do that here real quick. CUMIPMT is the one for interest, and I'm just going to take my rate, which was our 0.1 divided by 12, our 10% divided by monthly, 120 payments, and the present value, which was our 100,000, and we want to do it from the first payment through the 12th payment, and it is going to be payments that are paid at the end of the period, so I make a 0 there. And you'll see it automatically, just by using this formula, telling it I want to do it for the first period to the 12th period, it's going to give me my value, my answer there. And I can do the exact same thing, but I'm going to change this. Instead of cumulative interest payment, I'm going to change it to PRINC, which is my principal payment. And you'll see there just these easy formulas, or these functions in Excel. And again, these could be found in a quick Google search. If you Google searched for it, you would find these functions as well.